Hello, I'm Sean Lambert, and today I'm going to show you a game that I've played on and off for a while, but one that I have really enjoyed watching other people play and is very popular in my wargaming club, and it is Rule the Waves 3. Now, I played Rule the Waves 1 for quite a bit, and I never played 2, so I skipped 2 and went straight to 3. 3 has the advantage of being released on Steam, and it also has the advantage of having some significant improvements over 1. In my opinion, if you're gonna just dip your toe in the water, you might as well go straight for 3 because it has the whole package. Now, when I first bought 1, 2 had a slightly higher price tag at the time, and I was like, I don't even know if I like this game, but I turned out to like it, so I thought 3 would be a good investment. But I've played it for about 70 hours so far, so not a ton of playtime in it by any means. Now, some other great YouTubers, great wargamers have done incredible videos about Rule the Waves, and mine are not going to be of that quality. And in fact, I'm not even going to try that. So what I'm trying to focus on is a kind of a shorter campaign that surrounds the early years of the French fleet. And I want to basically go up through 1914, maybe all the way to 1920, but I'm not trying to go all the way through to the Missile Age. So if you're interested in carrier operations and Missile Age, that'll have to wait for a later series or one of those other great channels. But I'm very focused on like the Dreadnought era and the early years of the French fleet, and I just want to get through that and show you some of the amazing things about the early part of Rule the Waves that maybe a lot of people would gloss over trying to get to the fun stuff of the carriers. Now, I admit, carriers, a lot of fun, very cool, but the old school ships have a certain charm, and especially the French ones. So I wanted something that could go along with this book because it's one of my favorite books. And so the French fleet, ship strategy and operations, 1870 to 1918. Now we're going to switch over to looking at the game itself here, and we'll show you the starting point. So when the game first starts out, you are in 1890. That's the earliest start point that's available. And I'm not sure exactly what's going to be cut off on the screen here, but basically, if you've never played the game, your home screen is usually this screen here, Ships in Service. But the first tab is actually Maps, and on this map, you can kind of see everything that you control by just looking at the flags on the map. And this is also your main way of interacting with the game world at the campaign level. Now, you'll notice a lot of gray areas in this game in the early stages because these are basically neutral possessions. They have not been claimed by one of the major powers yet. And over the course of the game, those kind of get gobbled up by usually Britain and America, and some German. Japan conquers a lot of stuff as it gets stronger. But as France, we start with possessions scattered all over the world. We have, obviously, our main French area is France itself, but then we also, in the Med, have to worry about protecting our possessions here in Corsica, which we'll get into the rivalry with Italy in the 1880s that had been really intense. But basically, this area is a very big battleground for the early years of the campaign. And of course, we have the British Empire, who's also kind of a rival, with a possession in Malta and then obviously Gibraltar, as well as Egypt. So the whole area of the Med is one of the main battlegrounds of the French campaign in Rule the Waves. But if you're fighting against the British or the Germans, you also have to worry about your northern area. You can't leave that completely undefended, although you cannot be invaded in your main country unlike real life, you do have to worry about hemorrhaging VPs because of blockades or losing ships on stupid battles in the northern area. So if you don't have a strong fleet up there, you're going to get rolled over by the really powerful German fleet or really powerful British fleet. And that's assuming that nobody weird like Russia conquers Norway. In the Caribbean, it's almost impossible to contest the British because they have just so many more ships than you will. You could see even here early on, they already have a cruiser and a couple cruisers here. So we're starting with nothing in the Caribbean, and they're already starting with something there. And frankly, the Spanish even are kind of a threat to us early on, although they cease to be a threat as their budget decreases historically. The West African theater and Indian Ocean and Southeast Asia theaters are also very difficult to contest the British in because, again, the British have so many cruisers, and the early game is all about cruisers. The only chance you have really is to focus on one of these three areas and try to just sink as many ships as you can when you have little battles there, and then kind of dominate that area while you have your main battle in the Mediterranean. And that's, no matter who you're fighting, that's kind of the strategy. Because if you're fighting the Italians, you have to worry about the Indian Ocean and the Med. So you try to send a few good cruisers to the Indian Ocean in that case, and hope that you can sustain the fight while your main fleet defends the Med. Next, we need to look at our budget situation. You can see here we're already in the red by 200 a month, and we don't have a huge stockpile, although 13,000 is a good amount in the early game. We also have a really nice dock size of 14,000, so we can build pretty much anything that's possible right now. And definitely our dock size is not a limitation for now. But we are constructing 37,000 tons of ships right now. And we're going to take a look at them in a moment. But I'm going to give you the spoiler alert that some of them are not long for this world. Before we do that, let's quickly take a look at one of the most important things you can change early in Rule of the Waves. And that is your doctrine and training. So normally when you're, later in the world, you would want to be able to pierce the enemy's hull with, your strong armor piercing rounds. But at the beginning of the game, your armor piercing abilities are basically non-existent. So what you do is you set everything to use HE. And then you just you put AP down to 0 for everything. And then you put up the HE rounds all the way up to 100 for everything. And the reason you want to do that is basically because the concept, instead of trying to penetrate the enemy's hull, you're just trying to cause fires and, batter them. And it's way more effective to just shoot a ton of HE rounds than it is to actually hit something. So that's basically the main change you got to make. So yes, we want to save changes to ammo doctrine, and then we got to do the same thing to the lower tier targets. And this has really good dividends if your ship is designed properly to take advantage of, the way the game works. All right, with that done, then we want to take a look at the Almanac and take a look at our place in the world. So we have 7 battleships in service, and as you'll see, some of them are good, some of them are garbage. Then we compare that to Great Britain's 11. You can see we're already significantly outclassed there, basically 50% more than us, so that's quite a bit more. But we do outnumber almost everyone else, except for Russia has quite a bit of tonnage, but we don't have to worry too much about Russia early on. Everyone else is still not really building battleships yet. In the heavy cruiser department, we're very behind. Basically, the British have double our numbers, even after we finish here if we were to finish all 3 of these, that would still only put us up to 5 to their 7, soon to be 8. So they're still almost double our numbers at that point. Where it's a little closer is the light cruiser area, but tonnage-wise, they still outclass us by a fair amount, the British. And that's kind of our pacing threat. I think the realization in the 19th century was that the French could not compete directly with the British. And so that's kind of where the Jean Nicole ideas started trickling in, where you would compete on small, fast torpedo boats and, just have good cruisers versus trying to compete at the battleship level. And the backstory to how we are in the position that we're in 1890 is basically that over the course of the 1880s, basically there was a kind of rapprochement between Russia and Germany during the Bismarck years, Otto von Bismarck. And when he gets dismissed, the shift starts to be a little bit tenser between the Germans and the Russians, and it pushes us as the French towards the Russians. So it allows the French to start having a new ally in the East, which starts the long period of what the Germans consider an encirclement of the German Empire. So in 1890, the situation was that there was a pretty urgent need to reform the administration and industry side of the Navy, because the shipbuilding industry really was not as heavily invested in as it needed to be. And the fleet looked large on paper, and we can kind of see that. We have a lot of ships in service here, but in fact, a lot of these ships aren't very good, or they're actually quite a bit older. Like some of these are essentially ironclads. But as the 1890 decade rolls around, they start a huge shipbuilding program where they wanted to build hundreds of warships, 42 battleships, 41 cruisers, 130 torpedo boats. But they were all initially of pretty low quality. Basically the 1880 vintage of boat was not up to snuff. So in our game, we're simulating it with kind of a medium-sized fleet here. But the issue with all of our ships is that a lot of them are really slow, or, we have short range, cramped accommodation. So they're not like the best ships in the world by any means, but they're all we have. So we have to work with them. And I think as we go on here, we're going to see why the French, with the budget that they have available, can't really choose to go all in for battleships historically. So just like them, we're going to have to focus on smaller ships, but we're not going to go full torpedo boat, Jean Nicole kind of thing. We're going to focus more on really high quality cruisers that hopefully will make up for their lack of quantity with a really good quality, and we'll be able to kind of even the odds early in wars by sinking a lot of boats before they get damaged. And then we'll fill the gaps of that with kind of crappier cruisers and our battleships. But the key kind of motivation for the French in this time period and the pacing threats are really their rivalry with Italy and their rivalry with Great Britain. And those are the two main things that they're concerned with early on in this campaign. And so that's what we're going to be working with too. There's also some really interesting, cross-Atlantic productions that happen, which maybe we'll try a little bit of building stuff in America or something like that. But America becomes a very important part of the French naval strategy as time goes on and World War I rolls around. And really the French Navy becomes kind of a sideshow, and they really invest heavily in their army. And the British, American, French strategy is basically to use the French manpower on the ground on the continent instead of their navy, because it falls behind and they make some silly strategic decisions. So the victory condition I have for us is that we are like a relevant navy at the end of this campaign, when we're hopefully going to go all the way through to like 1914, 1918. First, let's take a look at our ships under construction and see if we want to delete any of them, because I think we probably do. If we look at the St. Louis class here, it has 4 12-inch guns, 10 6-inch guns, and 8 5-inch guns. Now, 4 12-inch guns is actually a pretty good broadside. I'd be happy to keep that. It only has 10 inches of armor, which in this era is not that bad, surprisingly. It's not that much, but it's not terrible. And it can apparently do 18 knots. So this ship is kind of workable. It doesn't have much in the way of torpedoes, although, that's kind of a questionable thing whether you even want torpedoes on it. But, it's got armor, but it's not like the heaviest armor in the world. And it's got guns, but it doesn't have a ton of secondary guns. It only has 10 6-inch guns. And really, we would want to squeeze on even more than 10. So for that one, I think we're going to continue to build it just because more battleships is good. I can't complain with another battleship. Then let's take a look at the Admiral Scharner, which only is 4,600 tons of displacement. Does 19 knots supposedly. But if we look at this design here, we can kind of see that there's some serious issues. It's got only 4 inches of armor, of which for an armored cruiser is not a ton. You might as well have almost no armor at that point. And when you're displacing only 4,600 tons, you can't go very fast either. So, because you don't have enough room for all the horsepower. So it's not a super fast ship. It's not super expensive, which is good. It's only $14,000, but its armament is seriously lacking. We only have 6 5-inch guns and 2 7-inch guns. Personally, I would rather have like 10 5-inch guns on something this size if we could get them. And I would probably go even lighter on the armor. Honestly, if we're going to have this little armor, like what is 4 inches realistically going to do? It's probably going to get penetrated by, just about anything. So there's no point of even having 4 inches maybe. As far as its other armament, it's got a couple torpedo tubes that probably are pretty useless. We could get rid of those as well. And then the only other space on the design, there's only 83 tons remaining. So you could theoretically go up in size to like 5K and then get it up to 20 knots. Basically by 5,500 you could get it up to 20 knots. That would be a much better ship, I think. 20 knots is at least more workable. And if we're going to go with 4-inch armor, I would like to squeeze on another couple guns. Again, that squeezes us up to like 6,000. You might as well go all the way up to 6,000 and load that puppy up with a ton of ammo. So that gets us all the way up to kind of what I would think of as a decent ship. But, is it a worthwhile investment the way it is now with, 2,000 less tons and 2 less guns and 2 less knots? I don't know. I don't know if it's worth finishing it or not. Because that's the kind of thing that's, it's already in construction. It's got 11 months left, a full year basically. Is it even worth it to finish it? I don't know. Let's take a look at the other ships before we decide. So the Chansi is chancy at best. It's got basically the same armor as the other ship, except it's 7,000 tons. And this one has 6-inch guns and 8 of them, which, okay, that's 2 more, and they're bigger, which is good. And it's got 4 7-inch guns, so it's got much more punch, which I like. This is more what I would want, and it's 20 knots of speed. So like this is a kind of a legit cruiser. I would be happy with this one. I think we're gonna finish building this one at least, and we're building 2 in that class. And if you look at the monthly cost, it's about double what the Sharner costs. So you get what you pay for in this case, but I'm just not so sure the Sharner is going to be worth anything because it's so slow. It's really not got a lot of armament. I'm just not sure what it's going to add to the fleet, and 19 knots is just not going to cut it for very long in an armored cruiser that's this small. If it was like a light cruiser that was very heavily armed or something like that, okay, maybe then you could use it as like just to wipe out destroyers on colonial stations or something like that. But for a mainline cruiser, I don't think that makes any sense. So we're gonna scrap that puppy. Yes, and that gets us back $92 and puts us in the black. And that's probably all we need to do to finish out these ships. But I actually want to open up this other design here, the Trudy, and take a look at if we're getting, if the Navy's getting what it should be getting out of a ship like this. So this is a light cruiser with 2.5 inches of armor. And it also has 4 5-inch guns and 4 4-inch guns. And it only has 71 tons remaining, but you probably could have squeezed another couple of guns in there. I don't understand why they wouldn't have done that. That gets us a pretty good little ship. I don't know why they wouldn't squeeze in a couple of guns. But I don't know. Do we finish these or do we just scrap them? I mean, that's another 1,200 that we would have that we could basically build a battleship with. I don't think they're worth it. I just don't think they're going to add anything to the fleet. They're not fast. They're not terribly well armored, and they don't have a good enough armament for the fleet. So I think we scrap both of these as well. They're not going to be relevant for us in our first wars. So now we've got 1,600 to play with. I think we want to design like kind of a more modern armored cruiser that hopefully will be less crappy. So we'll hit the auto design button a couple of times. Oh, this first one, we got 12 5-inch guns and a bunch of 8-inch guns on this puppy with 3 inches of armor and 20 knots of speed. This is a damn good ship already. I'm not displeased with it. Like, it's $1,200, but I mean, it's a pretty good ship. Maybe I'll take this one. This is got some punch to it for sure. So it's got a 6-inch broad, 6-gun. Oh no, it's not a 6-gun broadside. It's actually only a 5-gun broadside because the middle turrets aren't turrets. They're just wing turrets. So really you only get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But it's not still 5 8-inch guns plus a bunch of secondaries shooting at you. That's a fair amount. I mean, the only thing we might want to bump up a little bit more is the ammo, if we could. That puts us at -3, though. Still, this is not a bad ship. I think with a refit for the machinery in the future, we could put on some more ammo, which is needed, and we could probably maybe get another knot of speed out of it in the distant future if we rebuild the engine on it. I think we build it. Yeah, whatever. We don't have any of that stuff. Okay, so the Gueydon is going to be rounding out our fleet. It needs a design study for a few $1,000s. In the meantime, we'll just save up. So we're going to skip ahead now to... Oh, hold on a second. We have to assign our men, although I might automate that in the beginning. Maybe I just automate it. I'll just automate that for the first period of the game until we get into more expansive contact. We're not really spying on anyone, so our top spy, I guess, is just doing whatever the hell he wants. And he found that he got the blueprints to a battleship from Spain. They're building 12 6-inch guns. So see what I mean? Like eight secondaries is not a lot for a battleship. And it has 10 inches of armor, 9-inch turrets, 3-inch battery. I mean, I would consider this a standard, pre-dreadnought. Yeah, sure. Take a look at the design of our new ship. I don't care. And adds an extra month, I guess. Japan ordered a Fuji class from Britain. I wonder what that's looking like. Yeah, that's very interesting. So now after a couple of months, we can see that we're even further behind already. So by canceling our cruisers under construction for the light cruiser fleet, that really opens us up to being weak in the light cruiser department. And we also know we're going to need another big program of shipbuilding for our escorts. But I really want to get a couple of good heavy cruisers out before we have to fight something. Crisis with Germany. Okay, I mean, fighting with Germany is good. We would wreck Germany. Yeah, I think we want to just build a couple of these if we can afford it. We're pretty close to being able to afford 2, so we might try that. And that will put us in the red slightly, but I think that'll be worth it. So that we have a bunch of names that we can pick from. Might as well name it something. And then we're building 2 of them, so hopefully that doesn't put us too in the red. Yeah, we're basically the same in the red now that we were before, except instead of 2 light cruisers, we're getting 2 heavy cruisers. And we will have some money open up as soon as these other ships finish. So this is already vastly improved. Working on destroyers, but success has eluded them. I'm probably going to play about a year or 2 in this episode. It is a bit of a slow burn early on here, but it's still a fun game. So we're at -318. We're building our fleet up a little bit. And what we probably want to do next is organize our fleet into a couple of different squadrons and maybe take over the organization of our admirals. But basically, you, as opposed to Rule the Waves 1, where you had no control over what went into a battle, now you can kind of control how your fleet is designed and organized, which is really, really nice. And there's a lot of options for like where you want to assign them to. So basically, first things first, we have to go to the fleet organization screen and create some divisions here. So to create division, you click New Division, and this type is going to be first is going to be the cruisers. The cruiser division is going to be our basically our foreign division, expeditionary. And they're the EX division. And this is going to be kind of an independent, just scouting division. And to this, all we can do is add in 2 cruisers right now, but we're going to get some more. And we're going to give this commanding officer, I guess, just this Gay Jodel. And we're moving this division to start with. I think we'll put them in, well, where's Germany got stuff? West Africa, right? And they technically have this East Africa. Where do they have ships, though? They don't really have too many ships. I think we'll put them in West Africa for now. Okay, and then for the main fleet, for our actual battle divisions, we're going to call this the Mediterranean, the Med Fleet. Mediterranean Battle Fleet, and to this division we're going to add basically all of our Charles Martel class, and this we're going to locate in the Mediterranean. Now you might be wondering why I would do that when I think I'm going to have a war with Germany first. Well, I actually think we'll have a war with either Britain or Italy first, so I want to get some battleships down there ASAP, so that we can at least stand some sort of chance. And we got to just pump out as many cruisers as we can. And then for our light cruisers, these are just basically going to be escorts for the main fleet. So we're going to leave these where they are. Basically, we'll put in about half of it. And we're going to put them to the Med as well. And then for our last division, another light cruiser division. This one we're going to put in Northern Europe. And we're doing one more battleship division. And this is the kind of how do you say north in French? I'll just say north. We'll call it the Northern Fleet. And we'll add whatever we have left and any new ships that we get. So basically the Med Fleet is going to be all of our old ships. And then the idea is as the new ships get built, they just get dumped into the Northern Fleet. And the Med Fleet is just going to be kind of the antiques for a while. All right, so everyone is now has a admiral, and most people are heading to where they're supposed to go. We are missing ships on foreign station. Hopefully all of these can go onto foreign station without and meet the requirements. This is where it starts becoming a pain. So we need another 3,000 tons so we can detach this guy maybe from his duties and put him on foreign station. Yeah, and that puts us into where we want to be. Now at this point we are five months from our battleship being finished, at which point we will probably turn around and build another battleship. A scandal involving some important dignitaries from Japan has occurred at a party given on a world cruise by one of your ships. How do you handle the incident? Hush it up. Yeah, we don't really want an early war necessarily as France. Private shipbuilding is expanding. Max dock size is increased by 500 tons. Excellent. There's been an upheaval in Albania. Italy is sending a force. See, told you, Italy is always trying to mess with us. Should we ultimatum them? Perhaps. Let's see what happens if we just push for an international force. And they've occupied Albania. Those sons of bitches. Davao and Chouchet have been delayed for communications lags. Given that they're Napoleonic names, I guess that's not surprising. Maybe they're still using couriers or something. But I don't really care at this point how late they are. Yeah, I really need to get those heavy cruisers there. I don't know what the hell they're doing. Yeah, so we got a light cruiser there. I do want to also have a Far East division too, eventually. I wish we could afford another Gueydon. Well, maybe we should do a design study for a light cruiser. Something that's just fast, essentially. Very fast and has a lot of, small guns. I don't really like that design. It's too slow. Too heavily armed, too slow. It's a little bit better. Too slow again. I guess this is the only option here. So it's got a 2-inch belt, 2-inch deck. We can probably go down to 1-inch deck. Save us a few tons. Let's try to get it up to 22 knots. Yeah, we can do 22. But now we want a long range and colonial service ship. So that eats into it by a lot. So we'd have to go all the way up to basically heavy cruiser territory. Yeah, and that puts us at 32,000 buckos. This thing is even more expensive than our other ship. We really don't need this many guns. This is pretty ridiculous. So I think we'll get rid of a whole bunch of those. And maybe we'll even go down to 1 gun per turret. Now we have 594 to spare. I would rather crank out another knot of speed if we could. It looks like we can't. 22 knots, and maybe we could get a couple more guns. Well, maybe we could get these up to 4-inch guns, 5-inch guns. Yeah, 5-inch guns. I mean, this thing is basically, at this point, it's basically a 16 5-inch guns, yeah. This thing is basically a battleship. Look at this ridiculous piece of crap. It's just got so many secondaries. But, I mean, this is really, this is the meta. I want to check and see if this design is legal. It is. Cramped secondary battery. Rate of fire is decreased. Let's see if we can... we'll name it after... Metz. Yeah, we'll name it after Metz. All okay. 130 left. Could give it some more ammo. $1,400 buckaroos. Secondary mount graphics mismatch. I don't know what that means. Does that mean there's one fewer gun on one side? I don't know. So it's going to be an expensive ship, but remember, we're going for quality and damage over, quantity. Yay, we got one of our cruisers finished. Belt and sloping armor design deck configuration. Enables sloping deck armor scheme. Okay, so because we just finished a new ship, our percentage of the fleet that has to be on foreign stations increased. So that means we got to put on the Surcouf and the Forbine both onto foreign station now. And we're still 500 short. I guess we'll stick one of these on too. Our scientists report they're working on improved AP shot, but success has eluded them. Oh, that's something I didn't do yet. Look at my research, because we could bump up our research money. What I really want are good 13-inch guns. That would be nice. I would take good 12-inch guns, honestly, because these ones are crap. Let's put that, actually let's put machinery development at high. We really need the advancements in machinery and advancements in engines early on. The rest of this stuff I'm not sure if we need desperately. I'll put guns as well. And we'll leave that as is because we desperately need the budget so that we can build ships, because we want a couple Metz Class. Of course, low tensions mean less money. We just want to build, I guess we can only afford one of them, so it's going to be first in class. It's a long-range colonial ship, which is going to be pretty rare in our fleet. So we might only get 4 or 5 of them total, but that would be a lot. But I'd be happy with 2 to start, because then we can use those on foreign station and bring back our other ships to the home fleet. Because these at least use up a lot of foreign station space. St. Louis should be done next turn, and we'll be moving into 1891. Chanzy is commissioned into the Navy, and Pothau is finished working up. Prime Minister returned from a state visit to Great Britain, bringing home a proposal to solve outstanding sources of tension. What is your response when he asked for advice? We should take this opportunity to better promote our understanding between our nations, or we can never trust Great Britain to keep agreements. Better arm for conflict and beat them soundly. Well, I don't think we want to go to war with Britain, so let's try to avoid that. Maybe someday when they're strong and we want to get our asses beat. But eventually we will probably have to fight them at least once in this game. For now, though, I'm happy to do one more turn just to get the St. Louis out the door and then see what our future would hold. So St. Louis is commissioned into the Navy, and they want to raise armament expenditures. Excellent. Excellent. Let's do it. And let's see what Italy. I want Italy or Germany. I do not want a war with Britain if we don't have to fight Britain. Because the problem when you fight Britain is no matter what you do, you just get blockaded early on and you just sap your unrest level and all that stuff. So I'd rather not do that if we don't have to. So now that we have the St. Louis on board, it's a short-range ship, but at least it's not cramped, so it's a little bit better than the other ships in the fleet, and it's a couple of knots faster. So I think the next program we want to start building is some faster battleships, or maybe just really heavily armored or armed ones. I'll have to take a look and see if there's anything interesting historically that we could build, just build more of. I'm not in love with this St. Louis, but I wouldn't mind another couple of them. It's not a terrible ship. I just think it needs more secondary guns, but at least it has 4 12-inchers, which is a decent broadside. And it has good speed and armor, so that's why I let it finish, hoping that eventually I could, maybe throw on a little bit more speed or something like that to get it to be kind of a faster battleship, more modern. But the next big thing I want to do is get a squadron of cruisers of like 9 cruisers, preferably, that are just modern and powerful. So we're going to finish out these 2 Gueydons and the Metz. Probably do another Metz Class to start. In fact, let's just build another... which one's cheaper? Let's maybe build another Gueydon, and then we can start building... Build another Gueydon. We'll call it the Soule. The Soule Sullenberger. And then that kind of rounds out our production for now. And we probably want to put a little bit more into research maybe, or we could start building smaller ships to fill up our fleet. But we really want to get some good cruisers out the door that are going to help us in the war. And eventually, once the Gueydon Class is in service, maybe we get 5 Gueydons and 2 Metz Class, and then we have kind of a good modern cruiser fleet that will let us do a little bit more in the way of fighting. But that's where we're going to leave it for today, and I hope you enjoyed this first foray into Rule the Waves 3.